It's Laura Eubanks of Design for Serenity with your succulent tip of the day, and it's time to check in on this planter that we redid a couple of weeks ago. Now, we're in very early summer right now, and I had my reservations about reworking this because I knew that we were going to be coming into hotter weather, and I didn't want things to burn. But knowing that this exposure in my yard does get afternoon shade, and I am fairly coastal, I thought, let's give it a whirl. So, as you can see, it looks okay. Things have shrunk a little bit, meaning I can see dirt. I'm not terribly worried about it. But what I mostly wanted to do was check in with you guys. We can check together to see if these plants have rooted yet. Because remember, we don't want to water until we have roots. Okay, 2 weeks. You can see that we've got some little air roots. This soil is extremely dry because I haven't put a drop of water on it since, since I reworked it. I don't see any roots on this guy at all. I don't see any roots on this guy at all. So, obviously I'm not going to go through and pull out every plant, but what this is telling me is I need to wait and check this in another couple of weeks and make sure. You should be able to tug gently and have it hold on before you start watering. Even that plant that I pulled out that was showing a few little roots, it came out so easily. Wait until you just can't quite get it. Then you know that it's latched onto the soil and it's safe to water. But ultimately, I'm really happy with how it looks. Today we are going to rework its mate, this hot mess of a flanking pot. But first, I wanted to show you how these aeoniums were doing in their dormancy period. Now here is a lesson in exposure for you. These plants, these aeoniums here, aren't nearly as dormant as the ones in the front of the arrangement. Now remember, these are all from one planting. These are all the same plant. But clearly, this area up here gets more heat and more sun than the area directly underneath the palm. So I am not going to do a darn thing because most of these are still I would consider semi-dormant, meaning they haven't closed up into a tight little ball. I'm going to keep watering gently because, they're going to take that water and it's going to be okay. If your aeoniums have closed up into tight little balls, don't water until they start to open up in the fall. So just like the other pot that I did a couple of weeks ago, this is most likely going to come out pretty much in, see, one mass root ball. So, I'll let that be. And then I'll just pack in fresh potting soil into my pot that has good drainage. And because I'm going to be putting these plants in as cuttings, I want to make sure that the soil level is very high. So I'm going to tamp this down really, really well and pull up that soil level a little higher, making a little mound in the middle, so I have a little bit of movement in this arrangement.
Remind people of the soil.
Yes, and this is whatever's on sale at the nursery or garden center. I use well-draining soil. We want it to say planting mix. We want it to say potting soil. You don't want garden soil. Garden soil has a lot of sludge in it and isn't really good for pots.
So you're saying it doesn't have to be cactus and succulent mix?
Does it have to be cactus and succulent mix? I have never used cactus and succulent mix, I don't think, in my life, unless it was on sale. But you do you. Okay, so I'm going to take and I'm going to cut these plants all away from the existing root ball. My biggest concern with this arrangement, other than the fact that it's just a hot mess, is not to let this Euphorbia tyricale get ahead of me, because it has a root, the root system from hell, and I want to make sure that I can work with it easily because I'm lazy. Okay. Once I have all of my cute little plants out, everything that I want from this, Oh, look, there's a little Anacampsaurus in here. How hilarious is that? I'm surprised that's done so well out here in this exposure. Okay. All right, got it. Now I can go after this Sticks on Fire. And, you know, it's kind of faded, isn't it? Because Sticks on Fire colors up from the cold. And in the summer, it tends to get a little, you know, faded out. But it's a nice little piece, isn't it? I like the way it looks. So I'm going to try and recover it intact. I'm being very gentle so as not to crack any of the branches. I don't want any of that sap to make contact with my skin. See how it's in there? I mean, this thing grows on a heck of a taproot. So there, I've exposed the taproot. Now I can cut right there. Aha, got it. Okay. Now this root ball can go into the Garden of Death. And I can start over. So I'm going to take this cutting and put it in first because I want to do my thriller. And remember, if your succulent stands up, you know the rest. Okay, there we go. Now I can start with some of these other bigger things and just start tucking those around. These are little echeverias, are so pretty. This looks like a little blue sky. And this has got some carunculations on it, so I'm not even sure what variety that one is. It's been so long I don't remember. And look, here's an aeonium. I'm going to go ahead and work with it because it's been in this pot, so I feel like it's acclimated pretty well. And if it burns or tanks, I'll just replace it with something else. I've got a little Fred Ives here. I feel like I've got bigger things in this pot than I did in its mate, its companion. That's a really, really pretty echeveria, isn't it? Going to clean up all of that.
Is there any rhyme or reason, or you just...
Is there any rhyme or reason to how I'm doing this? I'm doing the big things first, and I work really instinctually because I know how these plants are going to grow. I know that I can manipulate them anytime I want, that I can take them out and I can cut them. I can make them shorter. I can pull them out of one spot and put them in another. But, you know, I want to, for example, rather than having a bunch of the same type of plant right, you know, standing in a row, that's when I can see that it's a good time to pull in something contrasting, like this crassula that has a completely different growth habit, different color, different textures, and I can tuck that in to kind of soften up the arrangement a little bit and make it look a little less intentional. And I've got some of these really fantastic little ghosties. You want to, you know, work in such a way that your smallest things you save for the edges, because you don't want to plant great big things in the front because they're going to visually overpower the smaller things behind them. Okay, so I'm going to take, you know, aeoniums can be precious. This is a little herbicum. You know, when they start to go dormant and they close up, don't they look like little rosebuds? So I'm hopeful that this is going to be okay, particularly if I plant some things around it that might throw a little shade or offer it a little protection from the hottest part of the day. And we'll check in on this arrangement together again. I'm going to be heading up, or I should say the family's going to be heading up to our vacation property up north. So I'm going to be gone for just about a week or so, not too long. And when we come back, that's one of the things that we'll do is take a look at this arrangement and see how it did. Also take a look at the other one, then see if it's rooted and ready for some water. But in the meantime, you know, I hope that this has made you brave and that you will get out and work on your own pots. Just remember to protect them from the hottest part of the day. especially when working with cuttings.
How can you do that manually?
How can
If
you...
don't have if you have only sunny places and you need
Okay.
to rework your pots, but
Okay, if you have zero shade in your yard, it's best to rework your pots at a different time of the year, perhaps in the fall or in the spring when the days are shorter, the nights are cooler. If you can provide artificial shade through a screen or maybe weed barrier cloth or an umbrella, you can get to work on them whenever you want. But figure it out, even if it's artificial. These plants will do better if they're cooler, not wetter. You know, we don't need to water cuttings because they don't have any way to take in that water because they don't have any roots. So the idea is to keep them cool, not wet.
you turn it. When you
Yes.
turn it, so you can see what you're doing and you can see the other side.
Okay. See how I'm doing here? Oh my gosh, that looks so good. You know, you will never have more fun than doing what I'm doing right now. I promise. And if you don't have enough plants to cover up all the dirt, you can always top dress with a little rock or some seashells or some marbles. Oh my gosh, isn't that a gorgeous color? Or, you know, whatever you've got, be creative. Some pretty stones, even some, you can even use the rocks that you get to put in aquariums. That could be pretty. But remember, you do want to pack your plants in really, really tight because as we saw in the other arrangement that we did a couple weeks ago, they're going to shrink as they start to use the water that they have stored in their leaves to create new root systems. All right, I am feeling good about this. It is so colorful and so fun and such a celebration, and I'm confident that it's going to stay this way until I decide to work it over again. Shall I put it up on the where it goes hand?
Do it.
All right. Yes, I know. Careful of the back. Lift with the knees. So you can see that this pot is in a little more shade at this time of day than this one. So this one will probably fare a little better and maybe even grow a little faster than this pot. But that's okay. I'm super happy with this. This has been Laura Eubanks of Design for Serenity, reporting from my garden in Chula Vista with your succulent tip of the day.